At my husband's funeral, my daughter-in-law insulted me. She had no clue why. The first time Lena Hawthorne heard her daughter-in-law call her cheap, it was at her own husband's memorial service. The chapel smelled faintly of lilies and old wood, the kind of scent that clung to grief and hymn books. Soft light from the stained-glass windows spilled over the black-clad guests, turning their faces into pale mosaics of sympathy. Lena sat in the first pew, hands folded over her clutch, staring at the simple urn resting on the small oak stand. After 42 years of marriage, this was all that remained of Daniel to the world outside her heart. A smooth, polished cylinder in a framed photograph where his smile would never fade. Hit that subscribe button and tap the bell icon so you never miss our latest uploads. She had chosen her dress carefully that morning. It was a long black sheath, its lines clean and quiet, the fabric matte instead of glossy. No sparkle, no lace, no ostentation. Just a sober, elegant piece with a high neckline and long sleeves, the kind of thing that whispered respect rather than shouted for attention. To anyone else, it looked like a modest outfit an aging widow might pull from the back of her wardrobe. To the handful of people who knew what the label inside meant, it was an understated masterpiece, custom-made in Milan and worth more than the average family car. Lena didn't care about the price. She cared that Daniel would have approved of how simple it was. Then the murmuring in the chapel thinned, like a radio being turned down, and a bright, grating voice sliced through the quiet. "My God, Lena," Harper said from behind her, not bothering to lower the volume. "Did you seriously come to your own husband's memorial in that dress?" The words hit the back of Lena's neck like cold rain. She turned halfway, just enough to see Harper standing in the aisle, one manicured hand resting on the pew, the other gripping a small designer clutch. Harper's black dress hugged her figure a little too tightly for a funeral and glittered every time she moved. Her blonde hair was gathered into a sleek chignon, and her lipstick was a vivid, inappropriate cherry red. Everyone near them had gone silent. Heads tilted, eyes shifted. Even the pastor, arranging his notes at the front, paused for a fraction of a second. "It's embarrassing," Harper continued, her lips curling into a sympathetic little pout that didn't reach her eyes. "You look like you grabbed something off a clearance rack. You're saying goodbye to your husband, not taking out the trash." Lena heard the soft intake of breath from the woman on her left. She heard the shuffle of shoes, the creak of wood as people shifted, pretending not to stare while staring at nothing else. Her own son, seated 2 places down, tensed, and then half rose from the pew. "Harper," he whispered sharply. "Not here. Not now." But his wife was already enjoying herself. Lena saw it in the way Harper straightened her spine and how she glanced sideways at the women standing behind her, 2 of her friends from the fashion boutique where she worked. They hovered like decorative shadows, mascaraed eyes wide, waiting for the next line. "No, Ethan, someone has to say it," Harper insisted, raising her voice just enough so that people in the next 2 pews could hear. "I work with couture all day. I recognize quality when I see it. And this," she gestured at Lena's dress with a flick of her hand, as if she were shooing away a fly. "This is not it. This is bargain bin sad." Lena lowered her gaze to her folded hands. She felt rather than saw the way attention swung fully toward her now, like a searchlight. At 70, she knew how quickly a crowd could turn a private pain into public theater. She had spent most of her life learning to avoid it. What Harper didn't know, what the women clustering behind her didn't know, was that Lena Hawthorne had personally approved the prototype of this dress 10 years earlier, in a studio overlooking the Arno River. She had adjusted the stitching on the inner seams with the head designer herself, both of them leaning over a mannequin while the summer heat pressed against the glass. She had signed the order for a limited run and later signed the document that quietly retired the design, as she had done with hundreds of other pieces. It did not matter. To Harper, all that mattered was the surface. "Oh, honey," Harper said loudly enough for the entire front half of the chapel to hear. "Daniel would be rolling in his urn if he could see this. We're supposed to honor him today. You could at least try not to look like you got dressed in the dark at a thrift store." The words were cruel. That was deliberate. Harper liked her cruelty sharpened and polished, served with a smile. Lena's throat tightened, but not from shame. The swell of feeling behind her ribs was darker, heavier, edged with the slow burn of anger. Daniel had warned her about this, about what might happen when he was gone. "You're too soft," he'd said more than once, brushing a stray curl from her forehead. "You forgive people who don't deserve it. Promise me that if I go first, you won't let anyone walk over you." Lena had promised. Then she had somehow married her son to a woman whose favorite pastime was walking over people. "Mom," whispered Maya, Lena's daughter from the opposite side. Her hand slipped into Lena's, fingers squeezing gently. "Ignore her. Please. She's just being spiteful." Lena wasn't ignoring anything. She was memorizing. She listened as Harper's friends murmured their useless echoes. "It's true," said one, a brunette in a tight black dress. "I work in retail too, and that fabric looks cheap from here. Like under $100, easy." "Ridiculous," Harper agreed, her laugh soft and incredulous. "At the boutique, our clients wouldn't be caught dead in something like this. Real elegance has standards, right?" She looked from her friends to the guests, inviting agreement. "Your mother-in-law has zero sense of what's appropriate, Ethan. You should give her some money so she doesn't embarrass the family like this." Lena kept her gaze on the urn as heat prickled behind her eyes. Tears gathered, but she refused to let them fall for the reason everybody thought. Let them assume they were tears of grief or humiliation. Let them decide the story. They always did. If they only knew, she thought, that there were 3 houses in her name across 2 countries, that there were factories in 3 cities humming because of contracts she had signed, and that the woman insulting her outfit made a commission on dresses Lena herself had put into production. If they only knew that the brand name printed on the lease above Harper's boutique was hers. If they only knew that Harper's employee file, complete with late arrivals and customer complaints, was already in a locked drawer in Lena's private office. But they didn't know, and Lena had never wanted them to. She had built an entire life on the quiet power of being underestimated. "Harper," Maya said suddenly, voice low but steady. "Enough. This is not the time." "Oh, relax," Harper shot back. "I'm just being honest. Someone has to be. It's not Lena's fault she was born without taste, but she could at least make an effort not to drag us all down with her." Lena shifted, finally turning just enough to face her daughter-in-law. She let her lower lip tremble. She let the fine lines around her eyes deepen. "She's right," Lena said softly, her voice barely more than a breath. "I never understood these elegant things the way you do, Harper." The younger woman smiled, a small, victorious curve. "At least you admit it," she replied. "And don't worry. I'll help you. Next time you have something important, I'll lend you something from my wardrobe. Consider it charity." A ripple of polite laughter moved through the nearest rows. It was the sound of people too cowardly to openly approve, but too weak to disapprove either. "Thank you," Lena murmured, looking down again. "That's very kind." Inside, she felt the slow, deliberate click of something locking into place. Daniel's voice echoed in her mind. "Don't let anyone walk over you." "Very well," she thought as the pastor cleared his throat and called the chapel to order again. "Just this once, I won't. I'll let them walk. I'll let them parade. I'll let her perform. And then I'll show her what happens when you mistake silence for weakness." By the time the last guest had left Lena's small brick house that evening, the sky over the city was streaked with violet and gold. Condolence casseroles crowded her kitchen counters, and the sink was stacked with plates from a modest reception she had insisted on hosting herself. Ethan had offered to pay for a caterer. Harper had pushed for a hotel ballroom, crystal vases, and floral arrangements that cost more than a month's rent. Lena had said no to all of it. She had prepared finger food the way she always did, efficiently, without drama, grateful to have something to do with her hands. Now, she moved slowly through the quiet rooms, turning off lamps one by one. Her black dress hung differently on her shoulders than it had that morning. Grief pressed down from above. Anger burned from below, heating everything between them. Her phone buzzed in the pocket of her cardigan. She slipped it out, glanced at the screen, and saw her daughter's name. "Hi, sweetheart," she answered. "Mom," Maya said, voice thick. "I just got home." I can't stop thinking about what Harper did. Lena sank into the worn armchair by the window, the one where Daniel used to read the paper on Sunday afternoons. Across the street, the neighbor's porch light clicked on, casting a warm circle on the pavement. "It's done," Lena said. "Today was about your father." "No, it wasn't," Maya snapped. "She made it about your dress. About herself. Who does that at a memorial?" It was disgusting. Lena heard footsteps and background chatter on her daughter's end, then a door closing. Maya was probably in her bedroom now, away from her own husband and the twin toddlers who absorbed most of her energy. "I'm used to Harper's comments," Lena said. "They don't hurt me like you think." "They should hurt," Maya insisted. "She called you cheap and classless in front of everyone. And Ethan didn't stop her. He just sat there." That was the part that had sunk its longest, sharpest hook into Lena's heart. Not Harper's voice, not the snickering friends, not the strangers trying not to listen while listening. It was Ethan's stillness, the way he had flinched, then retreated into silence. "He's grieving," Lena said quietly. "People don't always react the way they should." "That's an excuse, not a reason," Maya shot back. "Dad would have never let anyone talk to you like that. Not once. Not in private, and definitely not in public." Lena's fingers tightened around the phone. She thought of Daniel again. The way his hand had always found hers in a room full of people. The way he had quietly escorted more than one rude guest to the door over the years. "He isn't here to do it now," Lena replied. "So I'll have to handle him my way." Maya hesitated. "What does that mean?" she asked. "What are you planning?" Lena looked at the bookshelf opposite her chair. It held ordinary things, a row of novels, a framed wedding photograph, a faded glass bowl full of seashells from a long-ago vacation. And at the far right, almost unnoticeable unless you knew where to look, there was a wooden box with a small brass keyhole. "Nothing dramatic," Lena said. "I need to think. That's all. Promise me you won't just let this go," Maya said. "She'll walk all over you until the day she dies if you let her." "Oh no," Lena murmured, a faint smile touching her lips. "I'm done letting people use me for a doormat. You don't have to worry about that." After she hung up, the house seemed even quieter than before. The silence felt different now. Not empty, but waiting. Lena stood, crossed the room, and slid her fingers along the bottom of the bookshelf. Her hand found the tiny groove she was looking for. She pressed, and the wooden box on the shelf clicked softly, releasing a hidden latch. The panel behind the books eased open by an inch. It was a ridiculous mechanism, the kind of thing Daniel had teased her about when she'd insisted on installing it years ago. "What are you, a secret agent?" he had joked as the carpenter drilled into the wall. But he had signed the check without complaint. Behind a false front was a narrow door painted the same color as the wall. Lena opened it and slipped inside. The air in the hidden room was cooler, touched by the faint, metallic scent of electronics. There were no cozy knickknacks here, no family photos on sagging shelves. Instead, sleek filing cabinets lined one wall from floor to ceiling, their drawers labeled with neat, handwritten tags. A long glass desk sat under the window, holding a laptop, a closed ledger, and a small brass lamp. On the opposite wall hung a series of framed photographs, all in black and white. Runways, fashion shows, factories, storefronts. This was where Lena Hawthorne stopped pretending she was ordinary. She crossed to the desk, switched on a lamp, and sat down. With a flick of her wrist, she woke the laptop and watched the screen fill with the familiar logo, Hawthorne and L.Y. Ray, in clean silver letters over a dark background. It had started with hand-sewn dresses in a rented basement when she was 25 and desperate. It had grown into a quiet empire before she was 50. By 60, she could have retired to a villa overlooking the sea. Instead, she had kept working, not because she needed the money, but because she loved the craft. Now, at 70, most people in the city knew the brand. They just didn't know the woman behind it preferred to buy her groceries with coupons and drive a 10-year-old sedan. Lena had always believed the richest kind of power was the kind no one saw coming. She opened a drawer and pulled out a slim, gray folder. A white label on the tab read, in tidy capital letters, Harpervale. Lena laid it on the desk and flipped it open. There was the standard employee information form from 4 years ago. Harper's photo at the top, slightly younger, hair a shade darker, eyes already gleaming with ambition. Below that, date of hire at H&L flagship, 5th Avenue. Job title, Senior Sales Associate. Salary, commissions, emergency contacts. A list of training modules completed. Behind the form were copies of performance reviews and incident reports. Lena ran her finger down the dates. The earliest notes were ordinary, strong salesperson, confident with clients, good product knowledge. Then the tone shifted. Has a tendency to judge customers by appearance, read one supervisor's comment. Reminded her to treat all guests with equal respect. Customer complaint, another document said. The client felt belittled and left the store in tears. Staff training recommended. Repeated tardiness, wrote the store manager 6 months ago. Warned that further lateness will result in formal write-up. It wasn't yet enough to fire her outright. Lena knew that. She had always insisted on fairness, even when it was inconvenient. But it was enough to mark Harper as a problem. Enough to justify looking closer. She reached for her phone again and scrolled to a contact listed under a simple first name, Rena. Her head of operations, an unofficial fixer. The call picked up on the second ring. I heard the service went well, Rena said gently. I'm so sorry about Daniel, Lena. Thank you, Lena replied. It was beautiful mostly. There was one unpleasant moment. Rena hesitated. Your daughter-in-law? Lena smiled faintly. Rena always saw more than most. Yes, she said. She performed for an audience today, and I think it's time we stop pretending she's only a minor nuisance. What do you want me to do? Rena asked. For now, nothing public, Lena said, but I want a full review of Harper Vale's last 18 months at the 5th Avenue store. Schedules, customer feedback, security footage if there's anything that stands out. And I want a discreet financial background check on her and Ethan together. Understood, Rena replied, her voice turning brisk. I'll have preliminary findings by the end of the week. Take your time, Lena said. I'm not in a hurry. Not for this. She ended the call, closed Harper's file, and leaned back in her chair. The city lights glittered outside her window, reflecting faintly in the glass. Down in the street, a car door slammed. Somewhere nearby, a dog barked. Lena thought of Harper's loud, brash confidence at the chapel. The certainty with which she'd assumed that Lena's worth began and ended with the price tag on a dress she didn't recognize. The casual way she'd turned grief into a runway for her own ego. You could have apologized, Lena thought, addressing the version of Harper that lived in her memory. You could have pulled me aside later and said, I spoke out of turn. I'm sorry. You could have shown even a flicker of shame. But Harper wouldn't. Lena understood that now. Some people only ever read the surface, and they thought the surface was all there was. Well, the surface is about to change, Lena thought. For both of us. She reached for a blank sheet of paper and began to write, in her own careful hand, the first outline of the policy changes she was going to make at her flagship store. They wouldn't mention Harper by name. They didn't need to. The effect would be obvious enough when the time came. 3 days after the memorial, Ethan called her. The phone rang at 9 in the morning, when Lena was at her kitchen table with a mug of tea and a half-finished crossword puzzle. Sunlight filled the small room, catching on the steam rising from the cup. The house felt strangely too big and too small at once, as if her grief had changed its proportions. Hey, Mom, Ethan said when she answered. His voice sounded tired, edges frayed. Good morning, Lena replied. How are you holding up? I'm okay, he lied. I want to talk to you about the other day. Lena drew a slow breath, tracing the tip of her pen around a blank crossword square. At the memorial, she said, saving him the trouble of naming it. Your wife's performance. He flinched audibly. Harper told me she might have been a little harsh, but she was just worried about you. You know how she is. She blurts things out. Lena's lips thinned. She humiliated me in front of half our family, Lena said quietly. She called me cheap, basic, classless. She turned your father's farewell into a critique of my wardrobe. I know, Ethan said quickly. I know, and I should have said something. I froze. I'm sorry. Lena closed her eyes. It wasn't enough, not yet, but it was a start. Why didn't you? She asked. I don't know, he admitted. I'm used to smoothing things over with Harper after the fact. If I call her out in public, she spirals. I thought we could talk about it later. And did you? Lena asked. He hesitated. She says she was only being honest, he said finally. She grew up in that world, Mom. Fashion, labels, expensive stuff. She thinks in terms of image. She doesn't understand why you don't care. Lena almost laughed. Her entire adult life had been built on caring about details most people never noticed. That Harper couldn't see, that was almost impressive. Tell me, Ethan, she said instead. What does Harper think I can afford? He sighed. She thinks you're living on Dad's pension and whatever savings you have. She says your house is small, your car is old, your clothes are, Yes, Lena said. I know. She asked me yesterday if we should help you with your bills. Ethan added, sounding embarrassed. She said it looked like you were struggling. Are you angry with her for that? Lena asked. I'm confused, he said. Part of me thinks it's sweet that she wants to help. Another part of me knows she likes feeling superior. But Mom, if you ever need money. I don't, Lena said firmly. I promise you that's one thing you never have to worry about. He paused. Then why live like this? He asked, bewilderment creeping into his voice. You could have moved to a bigger place years ago. Gotten a new car. Worn, something Harper wouldn't tear apart in public. Lena smiled faintly. Because I was more interested in seeing who people were when they thought they had nothing to gain from me, she said. And because your father and I agreed that we wanted you and Maya to grow up without a silver spoon in your mouths. You mean you and Dad. Ethan, she said gently, there are things I need to show you. But not yet. You're grieving. You're angry. This is not the right moment to learn your mother isn't who you think she is. He bristled. I'm not a child. No, she said. You're not. Which is why you can wait a little longer and prove to me that you still remember the values I tried to teach you when you were 1. He didn't like that. She could hear it in his exhale. What does this have to do with Harper's job? He asked abruptly. She said she might get promoted this quarter. Junior floor manager. It would help us a lot, especially with the house we're trying to buy. Ah, there it was. The house. Are you in trouble, Ethan? Lena asked. We're just stretched, he admitted. The apartment is expensive, the car payments are high, and Harper has expectations. But once she gets that promotion, we'll be fine. And if she doesn't get it? Lena asked. He was silent. Harper is talented, he said finally, defensively. Her boss loves her. She says they're grooming her for bigger things. Lena looked at the thin gray folder in front of her on the kitchen table, the one she'd brought up from the hidden room. The one with the performance warnings and the customer complaints. Does she? Lena asked mildly. Does her boss love her? Mom. Ethan's voice dropped into a warning. Don't interfere with her job. Whatever you're planning, please don't. Lena's fingers rested on the folder. I'm planning to enforce the same standards I always have, she said. For everyone. After they said goodbye, Lena sat there for a long time, staring at the sunlight pooling on the table. The steam had disappeared from her tea. The crossword remained unfinished. She could have told Ethan everything right then. She could have opened the door to the hidden office, handed him the files, and watched his sense of reality rearrange itself. But she had learned the hard way that timing was everything. Drop the truth on someone's head when they weren't ready, and they might reject you instead of the lie. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from Rena. Got what you asked for. Can we meet? Lena typed back an address, the discreet side entrance of the Hawthorne and Lyra headquarters, and a time. 2 hours from now. Then she stood, changed out of her cardigan and into a plain charcoal blazer, tied her hair into a low knot, and picked up her car keys. In the underground parking garage of the H&L building, no one gave her a second glance. She was a slim, gray-haired woman in sensible shoes, carrying a leather tote that had seen better days. The security guard at the private elevator, however, straightened the moment he saw her. Good morning, Ms. Hawthorne, he said, pressing the button so the door slid open for her. My condolences again. Thank you, Luis, she replied. How are your boys? He brightened, launching into a brief update as she stepped inside. She listened, genuinely interested, until the elevator chimed softly and the doors closed. On the 12th floor, Rena was waiting in the executive lobby, a slim folder in her hand. Her suit was navy, her dark hair pulled back, her expression professional as always. "I'm sorry for your loss," she said again once they were alone in Lena's office. "Daniel was one of the good ones." "He was," Lena agreed, "which is why I'm going to honor him properly." Rena placed the folder on the desk and opened it. "Here's what we have on Harper," she said. "Last 18 months. They went through the documents together. The pattern became impossible to ignore. A steady stream of incidents where Harper had treated clients badly if they didn't look wealthy enough, or old enough, or thin enough to meet her personal standards. Complaints about being talked down to, ignored, or redirected to the clearance section without being asked their preferences. Hours of security footage showing Harper scrolling on her phone while other associates hustled around her. "Her sales numbers are high," Rena admitted. "She knows how to get close with the clients she likes. But she's costing us more in reputation than she's bringing in revenue." "And the financial background check?" Lena asked. Rena hesitated. "You sure you want to see this?" she asked. "I asked for it," Lena reminded her. "Go on." Rena slid a second set of papers across the desk. "Joint credit card debt. About $65,000, she said. Car loan in Ethan's name. Rents an apartment they can barely afford. Multiple late payments on utilities. And 2 weeks ago, they submitted a mortgage application based on projected income from a promotion Harper told the bank she's almost certain to get." Lena exhaled slowly. "So her entire future," she said, "is built on a promotion I would never have approved even before this week." Rena nodded. "Pretty much." For a moment, Lena felt a flicker of pity. It was one thing to dislike Harper's cruelty. It was another to see, in cold ink on paper, how fragile the life she flaunted really was. "They did this to themselves," Rena said quietly, reading her expression. "We didn't tell them to overextend." "I know," Lena said, "but I also know what it's like to be young and desperate." "Desperate doesn't have to mean cruel," Rena replied. "You built this company while raising 2 kids and taking care of your mother. I've never seen you belittle a single soul on the sales floor." That was true. Lena clung to it like a handrail. "All right," she said at last, straightening. "Here's what we're going to do. I'm not firing her from a distance. That's too easy. And I'm not going to let her play the victim in some story she invents later. She likes shows? Fine, we'll give her one. But on my stage with my rules." Rena arched an eyebrow. Meaning, Lena said, "I'm going shopping." It was a bright Friday morning when Lena walked into the Hawthorne and Lyra flagship store as if she were any other customer. The bell above the door chimed softly, and cool, perfumed air wrapped around her. Soft music drifted from hidden speakers, blending with the rustle of fabric and the murmur of low conversation. Sunlight spilled through the huge front windows, making the crystal fixtures glitter like captured rain. Behind the central display, the dresses glowed in muted, expensive colors: charcoal and champagne, midnight blue and soft ivory. Lena's own designs had stood on that floor for years. She knew every seam, every stitch, every hidden hook. Today, she pretended she didn't. She had dressed with intention: a plain navy skirt, a cream blouse, a cardigan with slightly pilled sleeves. Her hair was pulled back simply. The only expensive thing on her body was a thin platinum bracelet hidden under her sleeve. To the untrained eye, she looked like someone who might wander in out of curiosity, admire the clothes, and leave with a polite smile after discovering the prices. That was what she wanted. Across the room, near a rack of new arrivals, she spotted Harper immediately. Her daughter-in-law leaned against the lacquered counter, one hip hitched, her phone in her hand. Her uniform, black sheath dress, tailored blazer, fit perfectly. Her makeup was immaculate, her hair in loose waves. She was talking into her phone with a smile that didn't touch her eyes. "You wouldn't believe what she wore," Harper was saying, her voice low but not low enough. "It looked like something from a discount bin." I was dying of secondhand embarrassment. A customer nearby glanced over, hesitated, and then drifted away toward another associate. "Yeah," Harper continued to whoever was on the other end. "I had to say something. I mean, if my mother-in-law is going to represent the family at my father-in-law's memorial, She should at least try not to look like a charity case. Ethan was mortified. Lena felt the words like a déjà vu. She stood quietly near the entrance, pretending to study a pair of shoes while her anger crystallized into something hard and clear. Anyway, once I get promoted, things are going to change around here, Harper went on, twirling a strand of hair around her finger. I'll make sure the staff knows how to spot real clients from the people who are just browsing above their pay grade. Lena had heard enough. She stepped away from the shoe display and walked toward her. "Excuse me," she said softly. Harper glanced up, irritation flickering across her face before she arranged it into a professional smile. Her gaze swept over Lena from head to toe, and Lena saw the instant judgment slide into place. "Yes," Harper said. "Can I help you?" "I hope so," Lena replied. "My son gave me some money, and he said you could help me pick out something appropriate." Recognition flickered. For a heartbeat, Harper looked utterly thrown. Then she recovered, smoothing her features into a mask of condescending concern. "Lena," she said, "what are you doing here?" "Shopping," Lena said simply. "You told the whole chapel you'd help me, remember?" Harper's smile tightened. "Of course," she said. "Of course. Give me 1 second." She lifted her phone back to her ear and turned slightly away. "I'll call you later," she murmured. "I have to rescue a fashion emergency." Hanging up, she slipped the phone into her blazer and turned her full attention on Lena. "All right," she said briskly. "First things first, budget. How much are we working with? These pieces aren't exactly thrift store finds." "Ethan gave me $500, Lena lied calmly. Harper laughed, a short, incredulous sound. "500, she repeated. "Okay, well, with $500 here, we might manage a scarf or a belt. Maybe, but don't worry. I'll see what I can do." She led Lena toward the accessories section at the back of the store, the shelves lined with silk scarves, leather belts, and delicate jewelry. "Now, these scarves are last season," Harper said, picking up a pale blue square of silk. "They're on sale for $200 each. But trust me, they'll elevate whatever basic pieces you have at home." She held the scarf up under Lena's chin, tilting her head critically. "See," she said, instantly less plain. The scarf's pattern was familiar. Lena remembered the design sketches, the late-night email exchanges with the illustrator who'd drawn the delicate flowers. She had chosen the exact blue of the background herself. "It's very pretty," Lena said because it was. "Of course it is," Harper said. "I chose half the inventory myself. Management trusts my eye. That's why they're planning to promote me." "Are they?" Lena asked mildly. Harper's chin lifted. "Yes," she said. "My boss loves me. She knows I understand the brand. I'm basically the face of this store." A figure appeared at the far side of the floor, making her way toward them with measured steps. It was Ava, the store manager. Her blazer was immaculate, her short hair styled into glossy waves. Her expression, however, was not as smooth as usual. It flickered between professionalism and something like nerves. "Harper," Ava said, "Ms. Hawthorne is waiting for you in the upstairs office." Harper paled. "Ms. Hawthorne," she repeated. "She's here? Now?" "Yes," Ava said. "She arrived a few minutes ago." Harper's hand flew to her hair, patting it frantically. "She never comes without warning," she muttered. "Did she say why?" "She said it was important," Ava replied. "She asked to speak with you specifically." Harper shot a quick, uncertain look at Lena, then forced a bright smile. "I'm in the middle of helping my mother-in-law," she said. "Can't it wait?" "I'll take over," Ava said. She turned to Lena and offered a polite, more genuine smile. "I'd be happy to assist you while Harper takes care of the meeting." Harper hesitated, trapped between her eagerness to impress her mysterious boss and her need to control every situation. "Go on," Lena said gently. "I'll be fine. I'll wait." "All right," Harper said, flustered. "I'll be right back. Don't let anyone put you in the wrong section, okay? Stay here. We don't want you getting overwhelmed by the prices." She hurried toward the staircase, heels clicking on the polished floor. Ava watched her go, then looked back at Lena, her expression shifting subtly. "I'm sorry for whatever that just was," Ava said. "Can I help you find something?" Lena studied her for a moment. She liked Ava. She had hired her personally 5 years ago after a long interview in this very store. Ava had come from a modest background and earned every promotion with quiet competence. "You can help me," Lena said, "but not with clothes." Ava blinked. "I don't understand," she said. Lena smiled. "I know." She turned her gaze toward the upper floor, where the private offices were located. "Don't worry," Lena added. "Everything will make sense soon enough." Harper's heart was pounding by the time she reached the second-floor corridor. The carpeted hallway muffled her footsteps as she walked toward the glass-fronted conference room where important meetings usually happened. Ms. Hawthorne never came to the store without an entourage. That was what everyone said. She was a legend, a ghost, a name on contracts, and a signature on checks. Not a person who just appeared on a random Friday morning. Harper paused outside the door, smoothed her blazer, and checked her reflection in the glass. She practiced her best professional smile. Then she pushed the door open. The room was empty. Her stomach dropped for a second before she heard a chair creak behind her from the smaller office opposite the conference room. A voice spoke. "Over here," it said. "Come in, Harper." Harper turned. The door to the smaller office was half open. Inside, someone sat behind the desk, face obscured by the angle of the lamp. Harper stepped forward, heels sinking into the thick carpet. As she crossed the threshold, the person behind the desk straightened. The light fell fully across her face. Harper's breath left her in a rush. "Lena," she said, stunned. "What are you doing here?" Lena Hawthorne sat behind the polished desk as comfortably as if she had been born there. Her plain cardigan was gone, replaced by a fitted black blazer over the same cream blouse. Her hair was still pulled back neatly, but there was a sharpness in her gaze that hadn't been present in the chapel. On the desk in front of her sat 2 neat stacks of paper and a thin, gray folder. "Close the door, please," Lena said. Harper obeyed automatically, still confused. This was clearly Miss Hawthorne's office. The wall behind the desk held framed photographs from the early days of the brand. Grainy images of a tiny studio, of young women at sewing machines, of a much younger Lena laughing into the camera while holding a half-finished dress. On the opposite wall hung glossy photos of glittering runway shows and magazine covers. Harper turned back, her skin prickling. "What is this?" she demanded. "Where's Miss Hawthorne?" Lena folded her hands on the desk. "You're looking at her," she said quietly. For a moment, Harper's mind refused to accept it. "No," she said. "No, that isn't funny." "Isn't a joke," Lena said. "My full name is Helena Rose Hawthorne. Hawthorne and Lyra. H&L. I founded this company 42 years ago. Daniel helped me grow it. You've been selling my clothes for 4 years, Harper." Harper stared at her, mouth slightly open. The world in her head, with its neat categories, rich, poor, important, irrelevant, suddenly didn't fit together the way it had before. You live in a tiny house," she stammered. "You drive a $5,000 car. You wear whatever I want," Lena finished, "which includes a funeral dress that cost $80,000 to make and a pair of pumps the price of your car. Value and noise are not the same thing." Harper's knees felt weak. She grabbed the back of the chair in front of the desk, fingers digging into the leather. "If I had known," she began and stopped. "That," Lena said softly, "is exactly the problem." She opened the gray folder and tilted it so Harper could see her own photo clipped inside. "Do you recognize this?" Lena asked. Harper swallowed. "My employee file," she whispered. "Yes," Lena said, "with all your performance reviews, all your commendations, and all your warnings." She slid several pages free and began to read. "Frequently intimidates junior staff," Lena recited. "Redirects clients in casual clothing to the clearance section without first asking their budget. Mocked a client's accent in front of another associate. Ignored an older customer for 20 minutes in favor of a younger one she believed to be wealthier." Harper's face burned. "Those were exaggerations," she protested weakly. "People are sensitive. I was just being honest." Lena's gaze sharpened. "Honesty," she said, "is telling someone their dress doesn't flatter their shoulders when they ask for your opinion. Cruelty is standing in a chapel and telling a grieving widow in front of her family that she looks cheap." Harper flinched as if struck. "I didn't know who you were," she pleaded. You thought I was a nobody," Lena said. You saw a small house, an old car, a simple life, and you decided that meant no money, no power, no value. She leaned forward slightly. Tell me, Harper, she said, if you had known that I own this company, that I sign your paychecks, that every dress you sell flows from a design I approved, would you have spoken to me that way at the memorial? Harper's mouth opened and closed. No, she whispered. Of course not. And that, Lena said, is how I know your apology would be meaningless. Harper's eyes flooded. I'm sorry, she said quickly. I really am. I was stressed, and I hate seeing bad clothes, and I was just... You weren't stressed, Lena said. You were showing off. You wanted the room to see how much better you are than the woman you married into. You wanted to perform sophistication at my expense. Harper shook her head desperately. I can change, she said. Give me training. Put me on probation. I'll be perfect. I swear. Lena regarded her steadily. Your file is full of second chances, she said. Warnings. Quiet corrections. Patient managers who try to guide you. You did not change. You just got bolder. She tapped the other stack of papers on the desk. This, she said, is a collection of customer complaints filed in the last 6 months. About you. Harper's vision blurred. She reached for the chair, pulled it out, and sat down heavily. You don't understand, she said. I need this job. Ethan and I, we're about to buy a house. We have debts. Without my promotion. Lena's expression didn't soften. I understand perfectly, she said. Your financial choices are not this company's responsibility, but the way you treat our clients is. She slid one last sheet of paper across the desk. This, Lena said, is your termination letter. Effective immediately. Harper stared at it as if it might bite. You can't do that, she whispered. You're my mother-in-law. I am your employer, Lena replied. Who also happens to be your mother-in-law. That makes your behavior toward me at the memorial even more unacceptable, not less. Harper's composure shattered. Please, she begged. Please, I'll do anything. I'll apologize publicly. I'll go on my knees in front of the staff. I'll donate to charity. Don't take my income away. You took your income away, Lena said quietly. Every time you sneered at a customer's shoes. Every time you ignored someone who didn't look rich enough. Every time you used this store as a stage for your own ego instead of a place of service. Silence fell. Outside the office window, Harper could see the sales floor below, tiny as a dollhouse. Associates moved between racks, guiding clients, adjusting displays. Life in the store went on, indifferent to her personal catastrophe. What are you going to tell Ethan? Harper whispered, voice hoarse. He'll hate you for this. No, Lena said. He'll hate you when he sees the security footage from today and from the memorial. When he reads the reports. When he hears how you speak about his mother behind her back. Harper's shoulders shook. I'll tell him first, she said wildly. I'll spin it. I'll say you're abusing your power. That you're jealous of me. You can tell him whatever you like, Lena said. But you've misread him the same way you misread me. There is still a decent man under all that confusion. Give him the truth, and he'll find his way. Harper slumped. For the first time since Lena had known her, she looked stripped of all her armor. No label could save her here. No expensive lipstick could redraw her boundaries. Lena stood. You have 10 minutes to clear your locker, she said. Security will escort you out. You will receive what's owed to you and nothing more. Harper rose on shaky legs, the chair scraping behind her. You've destroyed me, she said bitterly. My job, my marriage, my reputation. Are you happy? Lena stared at her. You destroyed the first 2 yourself, she said. As for your reputation, this is the first time it accurately reflects your character. Harper glared at her, then spun around and stumbled toward the door. At the threshold, she paused. You think you're better than me because you have money, she spat. Lena's voice was calm. No, she said. I think I'm better than you because I didn't forget how to treat people when I got it. The door closed behind Harper with a soft click. For a long moment, Lena remained standing, her hands braced on the desk. Then she exhaled slowly, as if she were releasing 40 years of swallowed words. Her heart hurt, but it was the ache of a limb being set back into place, not the pain of something breaking. Later that day, in Lena's small brick house, Ethan sat on the same sagging sofa he'd grown up on, his head in his hands. On the coffee table in front of him lay the folder with Harper's file, the printouts of customer complaints, still frames from the security footage at the memorial and the boutique. "She said you targeted her," he whispered. "That this was revenge." Lena sat in the armchair opposite him. She had changed into her cardigan again, back in her role as simple widow. But the air between them was charged with new awareness. "This wasn't revenge," Lena said. "It was a consequence." He lifted his head slowly, eyes red. "And the rest of it?" he asked. "The company, the money, the hidden office. Why didn't you tell us?" Lena folded her hands together, the skin on the back of them pale and thin. "Because your father and I wanted to know who you were without it," she said. "Because we wanted you to learn that respect is not a luxury reserved for the wealthy. Because I wanted to sit in a chapel in a simple dress and see which of my children would stand up for me when everyone assumed I was poor." Ethan flinched. "I failed," he whispered. "You froze," Lena said. "You're human. What matters is what you do now." He looked down at the photos of Harper, gesturing at Lena's dress in the chapel, her mouth twisted in a familiar sneer. "I asked her for a divorce," he said quietly. "She laughed and told me I'd never do it, that I'd never find anyone as polished as her." "What did you say?" Lena asked. "I told her I finally understood that polish can be poisonous," he replied, "and that I'd rather be alone than live another year with someone who thinks kindness is weakness." Something unclenched in Lena's chest. "I'm sorry you're hurting," she said. "I'm grateful," he answered, surprising her. "If you hadn't pulled the curtain back, I would have spent the rest of my life apologizing for her behavior and calling it love." He picked up one of the photographs from the table, a black and white image of young Lena in her first studio, grinning at the camera with a spool of thread in hand. "Who are you?" he asked softly, wondering if he was hurt now. "Really?" Lena smiled, a small, tired, satisfied smile. "I'm your mother," she said, "who also happens to be the woman who built an empire out of cloth and stubbornness." He laughed weakly. "And what happens next?" he asked. "Next," Lena said, "you grieve your father properly. You grieve your marriage. Then, if you still want it, you come work with me. Not as my son, but as an employee. You'll start on the floor. You'll learn what it means to serve people who don't look rich. You'll earn every promotion you get, and you will never, ever forget that the lady in the simple dress might own the building." He nodded slowly. "And the money?" he asked. "The inheritance?" "You'll get it when I'm convinced it won't damage you," she replied. "Your sister too, but it comes with conditions. One of them is very simple." He met her gaze. "You cannot use it to hurt people," Lena said. "Not with your words, not with your actions. If I ever hear you speak to someone the way your wife spoke to me, I will rewrite every will, every trust, and every contract with your name on it." "I understand," he said. "I won't." Months later, when the city's gossip mill finally stopped grinding over the story of the boutique employee who had been fired by her secret millionaire mother-in-law, Lena stood in the flagship store again. This time, she didn't wear a disguise. The staff knew her now. They greeted her with respect that came not only from her title, but from the training sessions where she'd stood at the front of the room and told them, in detail, what had happened at a chapel one rainy afternoon. She had turned her personal humiliation into a company lesson. Never judge a client's worth by the cut of their coat. On the sales floor, Ethan moved between racks, an H&L name tag pinned neatly to his chest. He wore the same uniform as everyone else. He took the same breaks, worked the same hours, learned the same scripts. Lena watched him kneel to help an older woman with her shoes and listened as he spent 15 minutes helping a teenager pick out her first blazer for a job interview. Once, he would have dismissed both as small sales. Now, he treated them like the most important people in the room. Lena felt for the first time in a long time a deep, anchoring peace. Harper, she had heard, was working at a department store across town now, on commission, no promotions in sight. Lena hadn't followed the details. She didn't need to. The last she heard, through Maya, was that Harper had stopped mocking cheap clothes quite so loudly. One evening, alone in her hidden office, Lena's phone buzzed. A message flashed on the screen from an unknown number. "This is Harper. I don't expect you to answer. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. Not because of what I lost, but because I finally saw how ugly it was. You were right. Money isn't what makes someone worth respecting. I wish I'd learned that before I burned every bridge. Lena stared at the words for a long time. Then she typed back, slowly. Learning it all is something, she wrote. I hope you use it well. She set the phone down and turned to the window. The city glittered below, threads of light woven into the fabric of night. Somewhere out there, people were making the same mistakes Harper had made, judging by labels, mocking what they didn't understand. Somewhere else, others were quietly choosing kindness instead. Lena thought of Daniel, of his warm hand on hers, and his warning not to let people trample her. She thought of the chapel, of the funeral dress, of the sharp, cold sound of Harper's laugh. Justice, she realized, had not been about firing Harper or revealing her wealth. It had been about realigning the world just enough that cruelty no longer stood on a pedestal while humility knelt in the shadows. She turned off the lamp and left the office, closing the door softly behind her. In the showroom below, a bell chimed as another customer walked in, dressed in a simple coat and worn shoes. An associate stepped forward with a smile, no trace of judgment in their eyes.
"Welcome to Hawthorne and Lyra," they said. "How can I help you today?" And somewhere, Lena knew, Daniel was smiling too.